There are 5 major events recorded in the book of Zachariah. Do you know what they are? You've already alluded to it here.
5 major events.
There are 5 historical events mentioned in the book of Zachariah.
All right, so if I may say, king, reign, building of the temple.
There was a message that came from God one day. Then there was another day that another message came. And then a third message came on the 7th month. Fourth message came on the 24th day of the 9th month. And on the same day, a 5th message came. In other words, there are only 5 historical events mentioned. I suppose as part of or separate from, depending on how you want to outline it, you could say that there was another event right here. And that is that there was a revival. Right? Chapter 1, verses 1 to 11 gives us the first message.
What's the second year? Second year.
Yeah.
The second year is 6 months.
What does it say? Second year?
In the 6th month is chapter 1, the first day.
Oh, okay. That's the same thing. What am I doing here?
Second, 7.
You got this ready? Oh, there were two messages in the 6th month. You got me all confused there. All right. The first day of the month, there was the first message, and then the 21st day, there was the second message. But they're both in the same month. 1:1 to 11 is the first message. 1:12 to 15 is the second message. 2:1 to 9 is the third message. 2:10 to 19 is the fourth. And 2:20 to 23 is the fifth. And as part of the second message, there was a revival. Let me read that. Verse 12. That's part of the second one. Well, it sort of, the revival was the setting for the second message. See, after he gave his first message, this is what happened. I'll read it. Okay? Then Zerubbabel, verse 12, the son of Shealtiel and Joshua, with all the remnant of the people obeyed the voice of the Lord their God. Skip a few lines. The people did fear before the Lord. Then spoke Haggai, the Lord's messenger, and the Lord's message to the people, saying, I am with you, saith the Lord. And the Lord stirred up the spirit of Zerubbabel, the son of Shealtiel, the governor and the high priest, and the spirit of all the remnant of the people, and they came and did work in the house of the Lord of hosts their God. So, there was a revival of work. Right? In other words, this first message caused this to happen. And in the course of them having the revival, the Lord did speak to the people through Haggai and said, I'm with you. It was a short message, basically. Right? Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So the second message was part of the revival itself. The 12 to 15. Now, if you want to further break it down, the first message was a message of warning. And challenge. God said, get to work. What are you doing looking after your own things and leaving my job undone? The second message was comfort. I'm with you. The third message was encouragement. Look ahead, people. The fourth message was teaching. Basically, he was teaching them about being clean. You had to be sanctified. The last message was basically a prediction of future glory and blessing. The geography of the book. No time to sleep tonight, we're going too fast. Yeah. What is the general geographical picture which forms the basis of this book? Where did this prophecy take place? That's specific. Give me the general one. No. No. General.
The world.
That's pretty general. Which world? The Persian Empire. Okay? It took place in the Persian Empire. 1-1.
They claim they owned the world at the time, so that's the world.
Okay. The then known world. Yeah, it was a world empire. In the Persian world empire. Okay, now, we are now introduced, what is it, in verse 2 to, verse 1 says that it was given to the governor in Judah. So it took place in the general context, specifically in Judah. And the message concerned a number of things. It concerned primarily the temple in Jerusalem. We're talking about a location. Let me just read a few verses where this is stressed. They did work in the house of the Lord of hosts their God, 1:14. 2:15. And now I pray you consider from this day and upward from before a stone was laid upon a stone in the temple of the Lord, since those days, blah, 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 blah. Verse 18, consider now from this day and upward from the 24th day of the 9th month, even from the day that the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid, consider it. All right? So, everything about this book regards the temple. God complains, verse 1-4, about the people's houses.
Is he geography?
Yep. He challenges them to go out and get raw materials. In verse 8, go up on the mountain and get trees. What mountain is he talking about? Do you remember where they got their materials to build the temple? Where did Solomon get his stuff? Lebanon, up north, in Syria.
So this was still part of the Persian Empire. So
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, this temple obviously was much smaller. You know, it wasn't a grand temple like Solomon had, so they could have just gone outside the city and got trees, if there were any left. I don't know. It doesn't say where they got it. Right? But anyway, they were to go out somewhere and get raw materials, so it's talking about where this stuff takes place. There's a general picture of God's judgment on the land. And the book does include predictions regarding the whole world in 2 verses 6 and 7. and also in verses 21 to 22, the whole world is in view. Keys to the book. "13 times the house of the Lord is referred to in this book. There 13 times. The first reference is in verse 2 of chapter 1. "This people say the time has not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built." Verse 4, "O ye, is it time for you, O ye, to dwell in your paneled houses, and this house to lie waste?" Right? Now, don't turn me off. I know you're tired of me lecturing to you tonight. But chapter 2, verses 2 through 9 refers to 3 different temples. What temples are you aware of from Jewish history? Who built the first temple?
Solomon.
Right. Solomon, back in 1 Chronicles. Right? So we have Solomon's temple. Who ruined that one? When is Haggai writing? Let's just say 500 BC. He's writing 500 BC. What has happened? What has taken place before 500 BC? By who? Babylonians. They made 3 trips down there, maybe 4 if you include another one where they didn't take anybody away, but they destroyed the city. Right? And so they burnt the place too. So the Babylonians were the people that nixed Solomon's temple. And that took place about 600 BC. Now 100 years later, Haggai is telling the people to hurry up and build the temple. Well, whose temple was it? It wasn't Haggai's temple. Who was the guy that was responsible for it? Who was the governor? Zerubbabel's temple. Right? And we have this in Ezra and Haggai. Right? And then there's another temple that the Bible talks about. Which prophet have we looked at thus far that really emphasized another temple? He alludes to it. But there was one prophet that we've looked at in our studies that a dozen chapters are devoted to the temple. Ezekiel, right? Now it's not Ezekiel's temple, but whose temple does Ezekiel talk about? The Lord's temple, Messiah's temple. Right? There are 3 temples mentioned in the Old Testament, and all 3 of those temples are mentioned in this chapter. Chapter 2, verses 4 to 9. Let's read it.
There is another temple.
Yes, there's...
Time of Jesus.
Yeah, what temple is that going to be? Well, there was Herod's temple. Okay? That's not in view in this book. And there's another temple in the Jewish experience that is only alluded to in 1 Thessalonians and in Daniel. Does anybody know? And in the book of Matthew, there are about 3 references to it in the Bible. There's another temple besides Herod's temple. The abomination of desolation The Antichrist will come and set himself up in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God, 1 Thessalonians chapter 2, or 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. We're talking about the Antichrist temple. Now, you might as well call it the tribulation temple. Okay? So yes, as far as Jewish history goes, we know of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But only these 3 are in view in the book of Haggai. No. Let's read it. Chapter 2. Perhaps you should follow along in the Bible just because it's a little complex to explain. It's easier to understand if you're following. I think I'll start with verse 2, chapter 2. Speak now to Zerubbabel, the governor of Judah, and to Joshua, the high priest, and to the residue of the people, saying, Who is left among you people that saw this house in its first glory? Which house is he referring to? Solomon's temple, the majestic one. And how do you see it now? Is it not in your eyes in comparison with it as nothing? Which one is he referring to?
Present.
Zerubbabel's temple. It was, a poor excuse for a temple compared to Solomon's temple. Yet now be strong, Zerubbabel, saith the Lord. And be strong, O Joshua, son of Jehozadak, the high priest. And be strong, all ye people of the land. And work, for I am with you, saith the Lord of hosts. According to the word which I covenanted with you when you came out of Egypt, so my spirit remains among you, fear not. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Yet once it is a little while, I will shake the heavens, and the earth, and the sea, and the dry land. I will shake the nations, and the desire of all nations shall come. And I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. Do you mean Zerubbabel's temple is going to last until the millennium? This house is a reference to Ezekiel's messianic temple. The silver is mine, the gold is mine, saith the Lord of hosts. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former. Well, he could be referring even to Solomon's, compared to any of the other temples. All right? And in this place will I give peace, saith the Lord of hosts. He's talking about the future messianic temple where peace is actually going to come to the world. All right? An interesting passage, isn't it? Okay. So yes, you're talking about one of the key words or phrases in the book. You're talking about the house of the Lord. 13 times. 5 times in the book, the Lord challenges the people to consider. Consider. "28 times in the book, in these 2 short chapters, 28 times God refers to His Word. Now it uses a variety of phrases, from the word which I covenanted with you, to the voice of the Lord, to thus speaketh the Lord, thus saith the Lord, the word of the Lord's message. We put all those references to God's revelation. It was 28 times. He also says, I am with you, a couple of times. 3 times he tells them to be strong. 12 times he says, I will.
How many times does he call himself Lord of hosts?
I gave that to you under the main characters.
13 times.
Yeah, 13 times.
And be strong.
Be strong 3 times. I am with you 2 times. I will 12 times. Consider 5 times. There are about 7 references to work and labor. They all indicate minor themes. Again, it's hard to pick out a key verse, so I'm going to give you a variety to choose from. Chapter 1, verses 2 and 4. Those two verses introduce us to the whole question of human versus divine priorities. You know, you're going to build for God or build for yourself. Paneled houses. Verse 9 he says, because my house is waste, you run every man to his own house. It's like they're scurrying away like rats to get home. Reminds me of Sunday nights around here.
The ones that do show up.
Chapter 1, verse 12 mention the key elements about in a proper response to God's message. And what did the people do in the revival? It says they obeyed and they feared. Right? That's what you have to do. Yeah. Now, verse 14, which we've already read, so I won't reread it. But verse 14 is a key verse because it shows us the key element in executing God's word. Verse 14. Verse 12 shows us the key element in responding to God's word. That's faith and obedience. The key element in executing God's word is divine enablement. Nobody can do it unless God helps them. It says the Lord stirred up Zerubbabel and Joshua and the people. Stirred them up. It is God, Paul says in Philippians chapter 2, it is God that works in you both to will and to do of his good pleasure. He that hath begun a good work in you will also perform it, Paul said. I'm persuaded of that. Philippians 1:6. You know, it's a biblical principle through the Old and New Testament. You can't do anything for God unless he stirs you up. It's a key verse. Chapter 2, verse 4. Timeless principle of divine enablement. It kind of goes with 1:14. Be strong because I am with you. A timeless principle regarding, you know, our service. We can't be strong unless the Lord's with us. Now, if I had to pick one verse for the book, I would pick 2:7 for a key verse. God says, I will shake all nations, and the desire of nations shall come, and I will fill this house with glory, saith the Lord of hosts. That's a main class of important verse. Three things you see in this verse. You have the messianic glory. You have the messianic king. You have the messianic temple. They're all there. Who do you think the desire of nations is? It says, and the desire of all nations shall come. The desire of all nations shall come.
In my Bible it says the reference between God and his
Sure. Christ is the one that everyone is really hoping for. They don't realize it. People want peace, right? They want economic stability. They want strength of leadership.
Yeah, when you put it that way, I can see all nations before. I've seen all nations desiring.
I took first year economics, introduction to economics at the university about 5 or 6 years ago. And it actually had a page in this economics book. And it's amazing. I just about slobbered on my page when I saw it. It was so interesting that it was like a newspaper clipping that economists around the world are looking for somebody that can put it all together and provide peace and economic security. It was like reading Daniel.
Yeah,
You know, it was just amazing. They're looking for it.
Doesn't the Antichrist do the same thing?
Oh yeah,
That's what they're gonna get first.
yeah. There's going to be a temporary period of peace and economic prosperity. He's going to have the answers. 666 is going to work.
Or,
You know?
I can't see how people are going to fall for a number like that.
Well, who knows? That could be symbolic of a system. You know? Anyways,
another story.
That's good.
it's a key verse. It refers to the king and the glory over the nations and the temple. Chapter 2, verse 9 is a key verse because it says that peace only comes from God. The glory of this latter house shall be greater than of the former, saith the Lord of hosts, and in this place will I give peace. Only from Jerusalem. I think there's a phrase in the book of Joel, I'm not sure, but I think it's out of the book of Joel where it says that we should pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Maybe it's Zachariah, I don't know. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Not just that the city of Jerusalem would have peace, but that we would pray for the peace that comes out of Jerusalem. See? And that's been a prayer of the Jews for hundreds of years. That they pray. Yeah. 2:23. I think this is a key verse. It's the last one I'll give you. Because it shows us what makes a man great. The Lord promised that He'd make Zerubbabel a signet. He would exalt him. Well, the first and last steps are, I have chosen thee, that's the first step. The last step is, I will take thee and make you. Quite a comforting thought. You know, every Christian is chosen. Right? Read Romans chapter 8, verse 29 and 30. Them whom He hath called, how does it go? I can't even quote it. Moreover, whom He did predestinate, them He also called. And whom He called, them He also justified. And whom He justified, them He also glorified. Same process for believers. Okay. It's kind of again, you could preach a sermon on from the first to the last, you know, by using Zerubbabel as an example. All right, key chapters. I think chapter 1 is a key chapter because it emphasizes proper priorities. You could also say chapter 2 is a key chapter because it describes, it puts present labor in the perspective of future glory. The reason they were to work, because look what was coming. Present labor is in view of future glory. The themes to the book of Haggai. Haggai. The themes to the book of Haggai. Oh, that would be a $50 fine for throwing God's word on the floor.
Bet you don't get the coin.
What do you think the theme to the book of Haggai is? Thank you. Let's go on to outlines.
Rebuilding of the temple.
Oh yeah, you got it. Rebuilding of the temple. That's what John Phillips says is the theme.
So it's scripture.
Yeah. Rebuilding of the temple. If you want to put it another way, Herbert Lockyer says that the theme of his book is is the preaching of righteousness and of the predicting of the future. Preaching of righteousness and predicting of the future. They're both right. Now remember the main events in the book? How many did we say there were? 5 historical events. They basically revolved around 5 messages, right? The second message came in the process of a revival, right? Now if you remember that, it will be easy for you to remember Scofield's outline. He says that 1 to 11 is the first message of rebuke. Scofield.
That's it.
I just picked his because I liked it this time. I usually don't like his outlines, but this is a good one. 1 to 11. And then 12 to 15, the first message of encouragement. Two, 1 to 9, you have the second message of encouragement. Ten to 19, you have the second message of rebuke. And I'll let you do the last one. 20 to 23 is the third message of what? Use one of his words. Yeah, the book ends on a positive note, so it's the third message of encouragement. Well, that'd be an easy outline to do. It's a good one. Phillips. Probably not as good an outline, although maybe you could put them together. Chapter 1 is the call to build. Two, 1 to 9 is a call to behold. Ten to 19 is a call to behave. It smells like that first spot downstairs. And 2023, a call to believe. Now, that's fine, except that you need to be able to weave the message into those. It may be just these things. That's electric furnace. Dust on it.
What do dust on that? Burn off? I don't like trying to get it all because it's on fire.
Especially from the third floor with little fire escapes.
That's right. I go anyway.
There's lots of snow there.
Yeah, it's your house, you don't.
Gee, it's not as deep as I thought it was.
Who left this trunk here?
If I had to jump out a window, I'd jump out of that one over there because you land on top of the porch. It's only about 8 feet up.
This
6 feet
isn't,
up.
this isn't bad onto this dump.
It's a longer drop this way.
Yeah, I mean, to stretch yourself out, hang on to the window, and I'm like, oh, you're on it.
You can just grab that.
Fall backward, hit your head on the edge of it.
Will they take me home? Anyway.
Yeah, if you're gonna do it good with me, jump on the roof. Jump. Right.
The relationship of the book of Haggai to the rest of Scripture. The first 11 verses of Haggai, Haggai 1 verses 1 to 11, fit perfectly with the story of Ezra 4:24 to 5:1. Ezra 4 verses 24 to 5:1, which is what we read earlier in the class. No, 2 verses. Right? Now, the revival bit in chapter 1 verses 12 to 15, that revival is recorded in 5:2. No. Oh yeah, Ezra 5:2 and Zachariah 1 verses 1 to 6.
Zachariah 1.
Verses 1 to 6. You have Zachariah's message that he preached along with Haggai's that we've read today. Right? And then Haggai's message in verses 10 to 23 of chapter 2 about cleansing. And future blessing. Goes along with the first 6 chapters of Zachariah. Similar messages. And the only other thing I'm going to say about the book of Haggai is, in relationship to the rest of Scripture, is that it's a very similar message to Christ's message in Matthew 6:33, which says,
Matthew 6:33, be perfect people's way.
no, that's 5:47. La 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 na 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 na. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and His righteousness first, and all these other things will be added unto you. So don't worry about your house first. Build the Lord's work. Right? Now, of course, Christ's message in seeking the Lord's priorities first fits what the Apostle Paul plainly taught in a number of scriptures, one emphasis is 1 Corinthians chapter 3, where he says, let every man take heed how he builds on the foundation that God has set. That would be an excellent cross-reference to building the right way. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 9 to about 16. You are God's building, you are God's husbandry. And Christ is the master builder, or Christ is the foundation as a master builder. I have built upon the foundation that Christ made, Paul says. So you take heed how you build. Right? The business of proper priorities. The proper priorities business is stressed by Paul in 1 Timothy chapter 6. Don't, the love of money shoots people through with all kinds of bad things. What rich people ought to do is to share and want to do good works, and lay up store for themselves in heaven, that sort of thing. All right. So yeah, this is a really practical theme in this book. Yep. A couple of quotable quotes. Herbert Lockyer had one statement I liked. He said, Haggai not only preached but practiced. Because Ezra tells us that Haggai lent a hand in the rebuilding of the temple, not just preached. And then quote, I wrote down a couple of quotations from Phillips because he kind of puts it in nice perspective. 14 years had passed since the remnant had returned, and not only was the temple unfinished, but its foundation had become overgrown with weeds. At the same time, the people were building and ornamenting their own houses. Haggai insisted that first things be put first. I like this statement he made. He said, a wrong attitude towards prophecy on the part of the people was partly responsible for the national lethargy. He refers to chapter 1, verse 2. The people say the time has not come, the time that the Lord's house should be built. I was going to comment on that. This fatalistic attitude towards the work of God has its counterpart in the church today. Prophecy is never intended as an excuse for inaction, but always as a spur to holy consecrated living. A lot of people in a lot of churches have nothing to do with prophetic study because they consider it divisive and impractical. You know, they major on practical stuff like love your neighbor and be a good example and all that kind of stuff. These people knew what God had said. God had prophesied through Ezra and Zerubbabel prior to this time that they should be busy, and Nehemiah. And they had kind of given up on it, just let go and done their own thing. Haggai was one of the few Old Testament prophets to get immediate results. Who else got immediate results? Immediate results from what he said. Nope. Jonah. That was one of the greatest Old Testament miracles. What, 200,000 people got saved in a matter of 3 or 4 days? What other Old Testament prophets saw immediate results that didn't write a book that we have a copy of? That didn't write a book but that we have a copy of? Good Old Testament Bible trivia question.
Old Testament prophet.
Immediate results. Elijah. Remember the story of Elijah and the king? Was it Ahab or Ahaz? I think it was Ahab. He was Jezebel's hubby, right? He didn't like Elijah because Elijah always prophesied bad things against him. Remember, I think 2 Kings opens with that story of how he sent 50 men to go catch him. And if I be a prophet of God, send fire down out of heaven. Whoosh!
Along comes another 50.
50 more came up the road. If I be a prophet of God, let fire come down out of heaven. Whoosh! And then the next 50 came and instead of, and they ran up and fell down on their thing. I think they ran up to him and fell down on their knees and said, "Hold it! Don't pray!" He got immediate results.
Please come with us.
Elisha was another guy that got immediate results. He just saw his mentor taken up into heaven in the fiery chariot. Now that was immediate results too on Elijah's part. But so he picks up the mantle and he goes kawak on the river. And he had a dry path across the river.
Yeah, I know.
Then he was walking down towards Bethel and a bunch of kids came out.
Cursed him in the very
Bethel was a center of idol worship, and that's why they were cursed, not because they called him a bald-headed man. It was because he was a prophet of God and they were idolaters. And a she-bear came out of the bush immediately.
They'd eat the ones that were picking on bald eagle, which caused an attack on them.
Yeah, it was, they were the ones that were blaspheming God's messenger and God just... It's kind of an interesting thing, Haggai. It says within